I'm Aaron Baker from PhoneDog.com, and it's part 2 of the full video review of the Sony Xperia Z. Can this thing compete in the US and around the world? We'll find out in part 2. It's part 2 of a full video review of the Sony Xperia Z, and obviously this device is not available in the US, but I hope it comes pretty soon because I think Sony has a great play here when it comes to an ecosystem. I've talked about it in part 1, talked about it in this one as well, or I'm going to talk about it in part 2. I guess you really don't know the future, so you can't tell if I'm going to talk about it, but I'm giving you a preview right now. I'm going to talk about the ecosystem because I think in 2013, the specs, we're kind of reaching a plateau when it comes to specs, and I think really importantly, it's going to be about the ecosystem. It's going to be about how you distinguish yourself amongst your software, not necessarily your hardware. To that end, Sony is very similar in a lot of ways to Samsung and a lot of ways to Apple, where they've got their hands in a bunch of different products. They've got computers. They have a bunch of different technology products, the PlayStation. They have TVs. They have all these different options to ingrain people into the Sony ecosystem and get them hooked up all across the board. So obviously you're seeing that in this device as well with a lot of these applications like Let's Start PSM and Music Unlimited and Movies. And I want to start out by looking at movies because I really want to highlight the 1080p HD display over here. So we'll load up Xperia HD Landscapes. This is actually a pretty good one to demonstrate. And it is a gorgeous, gorgeous display. The camera, like I said in part 1, does not do it justice. And obviously I have light shining down on this in the studio, but really just a gorgeous display all around. And let's see if I can fast forward because we're not going to watch the full minute. But just so you can see, and I'm going to bring it up close so you can take a look. Pardon the focus issues. See if I can get it in here. I mean, just a gorgeous display all around on this device. Really beautiful, and it's something that stands out, particularly after working with the Nexus 4 and being away from the Droid DNA for a while, working with the Nexus 4 or the One X Plus. It is a gorgeous display. Then you have an application like Social Life, and if you didn't catch part 1, what I'm doing is kind of walking through a lot of these different Sony applications so you can see the differences. Social Life is a lot like Blink Feed on the HTC One, a lot like Flipboard on the Samsung devices, and it basically aggregates all your content into one digestible application, and it has beautiful graphics and beautiful text to boot. So I can bring in my Facebook, my Twitter, for example, click on Twitter, and you can see that, my news, and go to TechCrunch, for example, and see that pop up right here. Featured, popular, I can add stuff if I want to, I can favorite things, and it really just gives me a nice clean place to grab all my info. So very similar to like what I was talking about in the challenge, the Nexus 4 challenge. I like Google Currents. This is kind of a similar Sony option in terms of the way the text looks, in terms of the way the information is placed, and more. So really a beautiful application. Then movies, which we just covered. Let's see what else we need to go into. Play Now is a good one as well. I like this because it reminds me a lot of HTC Hub before they discontinued it. You can come in here and get games, apps, sounds, images, and more. So I can come in here and get applications. Kind of a store within a store, if you will, on Sony. Again, very similar to HTC Hub before HTC shut it down. So it should be loading up. I don't know why it's taking so long. Let's try sounds. Wallpaper here as well, and there's not a whole lot in the wall. I think there's like 6 wallpapers, so not a whole lot, but you've got Funky Rock. Let's listen to that. Free download. Of course I'm going to download some Funky Rock. Love some Funky Rock. And so you can download that, as you see, right there, and have it on your phone for free. So that's a nice little touch to the Sony applications ecosystem. So you've got that, and then of course you've got a couple of different options here. Sony Select, this is another one. We'll walk into it. I don't want to look at Facebook. We can come in here and see applications, again, music, kind of a one-stop shop for Sony stuff. And I can come back out here and go in again. Let's take a look at Xperia Link. And you can link up from your tablet and PC using the network connection of this phone. So again, ecosystem is a huge play here for Sony. I imagine it to be an equally huge play if this device comes to the States, perhaps AT&T as the Xperia ZL or AT&T and T-Mobile, I hope, as the Xperia ZL. That's going to be a big play I think Sony's going to make in 2013. It's all about the ecosystem. So up here, you can see the physical battery percentage indicator as well, which I love, 20% remaining, which means we've got to hurry up and wrap this up before the battery dies. 13.1 megapixel camera here with 1080p HD recording. I'm just going to bring in a phone, bring in the HTC One X, and again, you can really see the quality of this camera. You can see how my hand is moving, very much real time. And we'll do the HTC logo. And really a beautiful camera here, 13 megapixels, and it's a little bit washed out because I've got a lot of light coming down on this. Let's see, we'll do HTC right here. And you can see superior auto, and I've got a couple different options here. Burst, I've got scene selection, sweep panorama, so if you like burst for maybe the HTC One series devices or Samsung Galaxy S3, Note 2. You get that option over here on the Xperia Z as well. See how many I can take. 40. Actually, I had not counted this out. Well, quite a few at least. At least 65, that's for sure. And then you've got the option to store those, and I can go back in here and take a look at all those pictures that I just took. And I can select items. I'm going to go ahead and select them all. Select items. And let's see if I can select, well, we can trash them. Not throw. Throw away. You got the idea what I was trying to get at. So you got that. Camera's pretty decent overall. It's not as robust, or I should say, some of the features I prefer on the Galaxy S3 Note 2 series and on the 1 series as well. But still, 13.1 megapixels, really a beautiful image sensor. I'm looking forward to comparing this to the HTC One when it's available for review, because I want to see the difference between the cameras on both devices, because that's important for a lot of different people. But really a beautiful, clean image there. Let's take a look at a real image. And the flash did generate. That is not the best image. Let's see if we can get a better one. Let's do one with text if I can. Let's see. Pardon me while I come over here and do one on my notepad. And you can see what it looks like. So again, here we go. Upcoming dogfight, in case you were wondering. Xperia Z versus Nexus 4. Text is incredibly clean, easy to read. You can really see how it looks. Not a whole lot of noise until you zoom in. Really impressed overall with that image quality on the Xperia Z. Let's take a look at Quadrant Standard as well, load that up and see how this performs. Now, it has a 2,330 milliamp hour battery. It's non-removable, and I think for some people that may be an issue, road warriors, people that need to swap that battery out or charge on a regular basis. That said, grab a car charger, grab a spare charger. I've been relatively impressed with this. The standby time is incredibly impressive. Pulled it off the charger 2 days ago, and it was at 96%, if I recall. Left it in my briefcase overnight at home, took it back to work the next morning, and it was at like 92% or 91%. So impressive with the standby time. You know, overall on-screen time, not as good as some of the other devices on the market. And granted, I'm pretty spoiled by the Droid Razr Max HD and the Note 2 and these devices with these big 3,000 plus milliamp hour batteries. But still, 2,330 milliamp hours, it's not terrible. I get about 13, I'd say 12 to 13 hours with moderate use. Now, when I say moderate use, I'm referring to texting, calling, doing things like that. So the screen's not always on in the instance of calling. So your road usage is going to vary, or your mileage, I should say, is going to vary depending on what you do with your device. But network connection failed means we have to run this again. Second time's the charm. We'll hit yes here, see what our score is. We're looking at about 7,910, so very impressive on the Quadrant Standard front. I also want to show you a speed test here because this is running unlocked, obviously, on AT&T HSPA Plus, or rotating between HSPA and HSPA Plus. So we'll come in here, go ahead and set this up. I agree, and I actually have not done a speed test just yet on this device, so I can't really give you an accurate indicator of what it's going to be. So megabits per second, let's go ahead and see what we've got with the server. Get that over into Dallas and begin the test. So, you know, I would expect with HSPA Plus to see speed somewhere between 2 and about 7 megabits per second. Also keeping in mind Dallas is a very strong AT&T area. Obviously, AT&T is from Dallas. But, you know, still, download speeds around there for HSPA Plus. Your mileage, again, is going to vary depending on your particular AT&T market, or if you're using T-Mobile or whatever the case may be with your device. But 6.24 megabits per second on the download here. Upload, we're looking at about 1 megabit per second. So it depends on where you're coming from. If you're moving from an LTE device and you're coming back to this, you're going to notice the speed slow down. If you're coming from another HSPA Plus device, or maybe an older device that's just running HSPA, you're going to be fine with the overall performance of this device. So 1.02 megabits per second. So decent speed numbers. Again, I would wait if you can for the Xperia ZL because you might get that LTE connectivity, and that would be very nice. Obviously, we have to test that and see if it actually works. I can't give it to you for sure, but what I will say is that it would be nice to have LTE on an unlocked device as opposed to HSPA Plus. Can't beat that. Power management tip as well. This is something I found particularly useful in my review time with this. It gives you an estimated standby time, and then it lets you do a couple of different things. You can come in here and select low battery mode. You can select location-based Wi-Fi, stamina mode, and status bar information as well. So the battery level percentage is already checked, so it's up there. It knows how much battery I have left. It's dying relatively quickly because I'm powering a 1080p display at full brightness. So that is why it's dying. Disables mobile data when the screen is off. Stamina mode can be particularly useful if you don't need to get those updates right away, or you don't need your email running in the background. Got a couple of different options to really conserve energy, and it does a good job of letting you know in the notifications bar as to how your battery is doing. Otherwise, call quality pretty decent on this device. I've been relatively impressed all around. You've got your favorites, you've got your contacts as well, local groups, and I've got this stuff over here, as you can see, with myself. So, go to myself, for example, And see, there is the demo phone number, and I can add a picture if I want to. I can add additional contact information. So obviously skinned to look like Sony. This is Sony's UI at its finest, but still compare this to Timescape from 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and this is very much like stock Android. So again, big important stuff here. Great specs all around on this device, making it a contender against the Note 2, the Galaxy S3, the HTC One, all these different devices. Quad-core processor, gorgeous 1080p HD display, a nice camera, a more recent version of Android, still not the most recent, but a more recent version. And then you've got a decent battery as well. This is going to be a nice competitor. I hope it comes to the US because I really think, particularly in the States, Sony can leverage that ecosystem. If they can get this in the States on at least 2 to 3 carriers, and they can really market it well, market that ecosystem, say, hey, you got a PlayStation, you got a Sony DVD player, you got whatever, you should buy this too because the connectivity is going to be so amazing it'll blow your socks off. I think a lot of people will pay attention to that marketing message. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage of the Xperia Z. Overall, a really great device. I love the build quality. I just would like to see it in the US because I don't really get excited spending $780 on phones. Even if it is for work, even if it's going on the American Express business card, it still makes me sad to spend that much money, and I'm sure it does for you too. And so you want this phone at maybe $199 instead of $780. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage. Hit me up on Twitter as well, PhoneDog_Aaron, Facebook, Facebook.com/Hi Aaron Baker, and let me know what you think of the Xperia Z. More to come. Dogfights are on the way. Stay tuned to the site for continuing coverage. And as always, we'll see you next time.